Today, I'm going to talk about forced discipline. I'm going to tell you what it is, why it exists, the two players involved, the dangers of overexposure, and how long it should last. And let me be clear from the get, I am not against it. I'm the dad of 3 kids and I was a martial arts instructor for 35 years. I totally used it. But I realized from all that experience that imposing discipline on another person indefinitely is dangerous long term and it creates some problems. So let's get started. Now, most people think discipline means forcing yourself to do things that you don't want to do. Push through, grind, suffer. Or they think discipline means forcing someone else to do things they don't want to do. Like your kids, your students, your employees, maybe your athletes if you're a coach. But if we're going to talk about the dangers of forced discipline, we probably should define it first. Forced discipline is when an authority establishes an expectation and attaches a consequence to compliance or non-compliance. And look, a consequence is just what happens it's the response to an order. It can be positive or negative. It can be a reward or a method of punishment depending on compliance or non-compliance. But that's it. That's all it is. There's an authority that has the power to enforce a consequence, that has an expectation, and if that expectation isn't met, they actually enforce the consequence to gain compliance or obedience. Like a parent says, clean your room or lose your phone. A teacher says, do your homework or fail the class, in theory. A coach says, run the drill or sit on the bench. And a boss may say, show up on time or you're going to lose your job. Forced discipline is simply a mechanism. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just a tool. So the obvious question is, why do we need it at all? Why not just give people complete and total freedom? Well, because children don't know the difference between safe and harmful. New students don't know what's acceptable in a class or what's not acceptable. And a new employee may not know the boundaries of their actual job. If I hand complete freedom to someone who lacks knowledge, experience, or wisdom, I am not really helping them. I am abandoning them. Forced discipline exists because someone further down the road is temporarily carrying responsibility for someone who's not ready to carry it themselves. Its purpose would be like safety, structure, order, responsibility, skill development, respect for consequences, and definitely respect for authority. And those are valuable things. Forced discipline exists because the real world has consequences, and young people or inexperienced people, they need to learn that. Every forced discipline situation has 2 players that are involved, the authority and the subject or the individual. The authority wants something. They want order. They may want performance or safety or growth or responsibility or developing a skill. But the individual wants something too. They want freedom, comfort, approval, maybe a reward. They want to avoid pain and avoid consequences. Both players want something. Forced discipline is the mechanism connecting the two. The authority says this is what needs to happen and this is what happens if it doesn't. That's pretty much the entire system. And here's the thing, forced discipline, it actually works. That's why humanity has kept it forever. It teaches cause and effect. Good choices produce good outcomes. Bad choices produce bad outcomes. Like if a child touches a hot stove, there's a painful consequence. If a student refuses to study, he or she fails the class. In theory, if an athlete refuses to train and improve, they sit on the bench during the game. Forced discipline speeds up that learning process. It helps a young person understand that actions have consequences before the consequences become really bad. And that's useful. It's a good temporary tool. The problem is that many people never move past it. Now here's the $1,000,000 question. How long should you force discipline on somebody? A year, 10 years, your entire life? I don't think so. Because the purpose of forced discipline is not lifelong obedience. It's preparation. It's awareness of consequences for safety. At some point, responsibility, it's got to transfer to the person that's in authority to the individual. At some point, an individual has to carry their own responsibility. They got to stop asking, what do you want me to do? And start asking, what should I do? What do I want? What am I trying to accomplish? What type of person am I trying to be? If that transition never happens, forced discipline becomes dangerous and it outlasts its usefulness. Now, overexposure to forced discipline creates dependence. It destroys a person's uniqueness. It destroys a person's agency. The person becomes highly skilled at following directions, but sucks at thinking for themselves. They won't take the initiative. They won't appreciate or seek out responsibility, and self-direction will be foreign to them. So they learn to wait. They wait for instructions or permission. They'll wait for approval, or they'll just default to an expert so they don't have to think about it. They'll constantly wait for an authority to show up, and they'll struggle to trust themselves. They'll definitely become independent on someone else to tell them what to do. And here's the dangerous part. A lot of people mistake that for discipline. It's not discipline. It's dependency. The behavior looks disciplined, but the discipline disappears the moment that the authority disappears, because the authority was carrying the responsibility the entire time. Now, people usually respond to that type of discipline in one of two ways. The first is total obedience. The obedient person automatically says yes. They submit, they comply, they follow instructions. They're fine with being dependent on an authority. The second response is rebellion. The rebel automatically says no. They say no for the sake of saying no. And they think of it as independence. But they resist, they push back, they reject authority. But here's the interesting thing. Both of them are trapped. One says yes, one says no. Neither one of them is actually free, because both are reacting to an authority. One submits to it, one fights it, but both are focused on it. Neither has learned to govern themselves. Neither has learned self-discipline. One says, please tell me what to do, and the other says, you can't tell me what to do. But both are still responding to somebody else. So there needs to be a transition, a bridge to self-discipline. Forced discipline should gradually introduce agency, choice, ownership, responsibility. The authority begins shifting responsibility to the individual, maybe not all at once, but gradually. And the person starts making their own decisions, starts setting goals, starts carrying consequences, starts learning from outcomes. The person in authority needs to shift from the power-hungry, do as I say, to more of a guide. This is where self-discipline begins, not when someone forces you, and not when someone threatens you, not when someone, or because someone rewards you, but when you begin carrying responsibility for your own choices. Because self-discipline can't be installed, it has to be developed over time. And development requires personal authority. That comes from the inside and not from an outside source. Forced discipline is necessary. Children need it. Beginners need it. Societies do need it. But it was never meant to be permanent. Its purpose is temporary obedience to provide safety and preparation and awareness of consequences. If forced discipline lasts too long, it creates dependence. If it transitions correctly, it creates self-discipline. And self-discipline is where people start discovering who they are, what they value, what they're capable of, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what responsibilities they can carry, and eventually what they were designed to do, or their purpose. Forced discipline is not the destination, it's the training wheels, and eventually they have to come off. That's it. If this was useful, tell me in the comments. Tell me where I'm right, tell me where I'm wrong, where it doesn't match your experience. I read all of it. And if you want the next one, subscribe. Oh, and one more thing. My name is Scott Wilkinson. I am a martial arts instructor for 34 years. I don't think that martial arts instructors get enough credit, because we are actually in the respect, confidence, courtesy, discipline business. That's all we do. People come in and they say they want martial arts, but when we ask them, what interests you about martial arts, they always say one of those things. We're actually experts at those things. That's what we do for a living. People pay us to teach them these things. All I'm doing is sharing what I learned with you after 35 years. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.